यस्त्यक्त्वा रूपमाद्यं प्रभवति जगतः अनेकदा अनुग्रहाय प्रक्षीणक्लेशराशिः विषमविषधरः अनेकवक्त्रसुभोगी सर्वज्ञानप्रसूतिः भुजगपरिकरः प्रीतये यस्य नित्यं देवो हीशः स वो व्यात् सितविमलतनुः योगदो योगयुक्तः योगेन चित्तस्य पदेन वाचां मलं शरीरस्य च वैद्यकेन योपाकरोत्तं प्रवरं मुनीनां पतञ्जलिं प्राञ्जलिरानतोऽस्मि आबाहुपुरुषाकारं शङ्खचक्रासिधारिणं सहस्रशिरसं श्वेतं प्रणमामि पतञ्जलिं श्रीमते अनन्ताय नागराजाय नमो नमः। पातञ्जलमहाभाष्य चरकप्रतिसंस्कृतैः मनोवाक्कायदोषाणां हर्त्रे अहिपतये नमः। Om.
So friends, last week we were exploring the sutra Vishayavati va pravrittirutpanna manasaha sthiti nibandhini, sutra 135, where Patanjali is exploring the concept of meditation or reflection on the senses, or where our sensory activities are originating from. Because many times we fall a trap to suffering, we fall a trap to objects because of senses, and therefore he says when you go back to the origins of where you are relating with sensory objects, then you will somehow find some kind of peace, some kind of reduction in dukkham, etc. Patanjali now presents a very amazing sutra, one more way. Well, if senses are not the source of your problem, but there is something else that is the source of a problem, he is saying, Vishokava Jyotishmati. Vishokava Jyotishmati. It's a very fascinating sutra where he says, focus on what is called Vishoka or what is called Jyotishmati. Now, this is very fascinating because when we are suffering, very often we tend to attach ourselves to suffering, and we attach to it so much that we somehow identify with that suffering, and we are not able to come out of that. There are many people I know of and I see on a daily basis when I work with yoga therapy with them, that many people, even though at one conscious level they are coming for therapy, at a very unconscious level they do not want to be helped, they do not want to heal, because the identification with suffering is so strong. That's why one of the definitions of yoga itself is presented as dukkha samyoga viyoga yoga, the disconnection from the samyoga of to dukkham. What this definition is saying is, normally we have this samyoga to dukkham. In modern language we can use this term, we are very happy to be the victim. Nothing, it is not our problem, it is not our fault, it is always the fault of somebody else. We are very happy with that because we don't want to look at ourselves. So we become associated with dukkham all the time. Dukkham is dark. in energy, it is dark. So the more and more we associate with dukkham, we start to exhibit more and more the qualities of what we are associated with or what we are linked with. For example, when you are in relationship with a person for long term, you slowly start seeing that you start taking some of the qualities of the person you are in relationship with. You take a dog or a cat that you have for long term, you will see that slowly the dog starts behaving like you start behaving like the dog. You take some attributes, some things, very, very subtle things. The same way, when you start associating with dukkham for a long time, which is a very easy thing for us to do, then we start exhibiting the attributes of dukkham, which is darkness. So we become dark, we see the world as dark, we see always world as suffering. We don't see it in a positive way. And it is also very easy to get attracted to dukkham because as an energetic force, dukkham is associated very strongly with the dark energy, which is tamas. Tamas is very sticky. Tamas is very sticky. That's why it is called tamas. Kapha. It's very sticky. It's dominated by the element of earth and water. In some ways, it is dark and sticky. So when you are like stuck in like a classic example like in tar, which is dark in color and sticky, it's very difficult for you to get out of that tar. It's much more easy for you to remain there. Now, okay, so if you remain there in tar and not want to get out of that even though it is comfortable at the moment, what eventually happens, you get sucked by that tar. And eventually it consumes you and you die. So even though it's difficult for you to come out of it, you have to come out because the easy thing is to surrender to the power of tamas. That is why many people want to be a victim many years after their problems as well. In the modern era, we talk about this victimhood. People have had problems in their childhood, but they don't want to come out of that problem in the childhood even after 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years of their life. They still exhibit the same identification with the trauma. They start getting hurt because their association with that childhood trauma is so strong. And it's very easy to become the victim and always blame, oh, you are causing my suffering, you are causing my suffering, you are causing my suffering, etc. So this becomes the concept which we are naturally drawn to, and this is what Patanjali is talking about here. In many circumstances, it is much more easier to get sucked by the dark energy, the energy of dukkham. Dukkham energy is very easy to get sucked by. So even if you watch movies like Star Wars, you see that getting sucked into the dark side is much more easier than trying to remain good. So that's why we suffer, because we are stuck and we are not coming out of that. So Patanjali here is giving an alternate idea. He says, don't associate yourself with this dark side, which is suffering. Associate to what is Vishoka, what is Jyotishmati. Jyotishmati means full of light. Jyotishmati. So associate with what is inside you that is full of light, that does not suffer. Vishokam. Shokam means suffering. Vishokam means that which is devoid of suffering. We are all not only having a helpless side. We have to realize in the yoga and Sankhya philosophy, in Vedanta philosophy as well, we are not only having one part of us that is helpless, Prakriti, experiences, memory, vasanas, all these which are negative. It is not only negative, it is not only the helpless things that we have. We also have memories and vasanas which are light and positive. If you look at all of our childhood, we didn't only have negative experiences, we also had wonderful experiences. We have positive experiences as well, but we get trapped by the negative. So in one way, at one dimension, What Patanjali is saying is start focusing on those vasanas, those memories, those impressions that you have that are vishoka, that is not suffering, that is jyotishmati, that is full of lightness, where you are not feeling heavy. And sometimes it need not even be like a cognitive structure of what made you feel like that. There may have been an experience where in childhood you are just feeling happy, a memory of happiness, but you may not remember why you felt happy at that time. Just go back to that memory, go back to that place where you are feeling like that also is enough to change our suffering to sukham. Sometimes we just have to do something as simple as that. Sometimes we have to do something as simple as that. My father was counseling a student or talking to a student about this kind of an example during this sutra, where one person had come and a young man had come and he had won a cricket match with his school team. But at the same cricket match, he also had hurt his leg or something because of the game. He had suffering or something. And he was always more focused on this problem. And my father was trying to remind him, okay, that is part of your reality. But start thinking about the match that you won for your team. Because of you, that you maybe dived and caught the ball, that the team won, but that made you hurt. But start focusing on the positive of something rather than the negative. And in the yoga philosophy, in the Vedic philosophy, we are always saying that darkness always has another side, which is light. There can never be darkness without light. So if we choose to look at the dark and remain there, we will remain dark. If we take some effort to go around and see the other side, we will see that there is always light, even in that dark situation. Even in that dark situation, you will see some light. For me personally, it has been the case myself where a few years ago I have been through a very, very challenging time, both personally as well as professionally. And that part, if I look at those 2 years, there was so much of difficulty, so much of suffering that was going through this time. But I can always focus on that and become even more depressed, even more anxious, etc. But it's in the same time where all this suffering was going on that some wonderful things also started to come. For example, it is during this time that I met my wife, with whom I have such a great relationship now. It is during this time that my relationship with my mother changed. It's during this time that so many more insights into understanding the teachings of my grandfather came. It is the same period of time. So it's almost like there were two tracks going on. One track was pulling me down so strongly, whereas on the other side, the other track was elevating me as well. Now Patanjali says we have a choice. What are we going to focus on? Are we going to focus on all the negative that is pulling you down? Or are you going to choose that which is taking you, elevating you upward? Maybe the rate at which you are going down is faster than the rate in which you are going up. This could be the reason why you are getting easily sucked by the negative energy. But still, if you keep always having an eye on the positive things, slowly the momentum will change and you will slowly disconnect from this darkness and be in the path of light. We all have this, that there is always two sides of reality. What side of reality we choose to focus on is our choice, not anybody else's choice. We cannot blame anybody else. And that is what Patanjali says, Vishokava Jyotishmati. Focus on that aspect of your life which is also having some lightness, which is also having some lack of suffering, which means joy. The reason also is important because in this chapter mainly it is for those people whose mind is not really so agitated, but whose mind is what is called samahita chitta, reasonably stable mind. For those who are very disturbed, second chapter teachings become significant. For those who are in the first chapter, it's for those who have what is called samahita chitta, people whose mind is more or less stable. Sometimes they are getting pulled down. So for such people, just a simple shift in perspective is enough for them to come out of their suffering. So this is one aspect of this sutra. But there is another aspect of this sutra which is also very important in the yoga field and Sankhya field as well, which is that there is not just one part in us which is dark, there is also another part in us which is full of light, which does not suffer. And that part is what is called the Purusha. Prakriti is what causes suffering because Prakriti is what keeps changing. Prakriti is dead, it does not have light. Purusha is the quality of lightness. Now what are you choosing to focus on in your system? Are you focusing on the material construct that you are made of, which is changing, which is suffering, etc.? Or are you going to focus on this inner construct, what is called the Purusha, the consciousness that is full of light? The moment we start focusing on that Purusha that we have also inside us, which is in our heart, then this becomes also light. And this for me, friends, is a very important aspect, because lightness is associated with warmth. Sun gives light. Sun is what gives light. Darkness is cold. It's very cold, and when it's dark in the night it's cooler, the sun is not there. Nature is a mirror of what is happening here. The same way, when we look at our system, the heart is a place where there is warmth, because it is the place of great warmth. The mind here is actually a place which is much more colder. And actually, if you measure, they've done some studies, they measure the temperature in these two places. Physically also, the temperature here is cooler than the temperature in the heart region. Very logical to understand, because there's lots of blood in the heart. Blood is warm usually. So, when we connect to the place in the heart, disconnect from this fellow between the ears and go deeper, part of the problems also disappears, because many of the problems are created by mind, not by objects. Not by how an object is, but how you see the object. Your mind sees the object. There is a great difference between what I call reflection and analysis. Yoga is asking us to do reflection. Yoga is not asking us to do analysis. Analysis is a very busy activity of the mind. To keep analyzing why this, why that, why they do this, why this, why that, why did I choose the croissant, why did I not choose masala dosa? We have all this analysis. The heart is telling us to feel, to reflect. It says do what feels right, not what you think is right. Often this is a conflict, because what you think is right can always be confusing, because mind can play both games. Mind on the one hand can convince you that this is right, in the same moment it can convince you that the opposite is also right, and that is the dirty game it plays. That's what my father always used to quote J. Krishnamurti, who told him that mind can be a faithful servant or a very evil master. Depends on how you use it. And when you give too much importance to it, it becomes an evil master. It confuses you, it collapses you, because it does not have jnanam. Jnanam is an attribute of consciousness in Vedic philosophy, and that is why it is warm, because jnanam is lightness. Only that which is warm can have knowledge, can have light. So that is why that is the place where we are asking us to connect. That is what is reflection. Reflection is when the mind is quiet. Often we compare the mind to be like a lake. When the mind has lots of waves, the lake has lots of waves. the mountain behind the lake cannot be reflected very clearly. It becomes very blurred. That's what happens when the mind is very agitated. The objects that it is seeing, the reality that it is seeing is not clear, it is blurred. Whereas when the lake is very silent, the mountain is perfectly reflected on the lake without any influence extra. The reflection will not add a bird to the background. If the bird is flying, the reflection will show that the bird is flying. But if the bird is not there, the reflection will not show a bird. The mind will show a bird because the mind can imagine. If you let the mind imagine, the mind can show a bird, it can show Dracula, it can show anything you want, which need not even be there. That's why there is a difference between analysis and reflection. And what the sutra is telling you to do is to reflect on the Vishoka, reflect on the Jyotishmati, not analyze. So it's asking us to reflect on the Purusha, reflect on the one in the heart that we all have, which is why we are alive, what we call as Jivatma, what we call as Purusha, etc. All this is what Patanjali is asking us to reflect, which is when we do that, things become more clear. Because when you listen to the voice that is deep in your heart, not from the chatter of your mind, things become more clear. So suffering is automatically reduced. And this is very, very important as well. That's why sometimes the yogis say, do maunam. Maunam means not shutting your mouth. Maunam actually is a word that is linked with manas. A person who is a mauni is a person whose mind is quiet, not whose mouth is quiet. That means the mauni speaks only when necessary, only what is necessary, and only after very good reflection, not just whatever you want to talk. This is a problem now in modern era because we have what is called freedom of speech. Now freedom of speech has been abused now, where people just speak whenever they want, wherever they want, whatever they want, whether it's right or wrong. In the old days, you had to earn your right to speak, especially in a community, you had to earn your right to speak. And I'm not only talking about communities in India, around the world. We have a friend who is from New Zealand, and when we visited her last year, she is a Maori woman, and she said she was very honored because last year was the first year she was allowed, she was given the right to speak on in the front of the Maori elders and the people, which is what you have to deserve the right to speak, because what you speak must make sense. It should not just be the chatter of your mind. That's what we have abused. Freedom of speech is exploited. Freedom of speech is very important. But not to say whatever you want, whenever you want, however you want, and everybody has to accept what you are saying. That is also a problem. So that's where all this comes. Where are you speaking from? Are you speaking from the heart? Or are you speaking from your frustrations? And many times people kind of verbalize the chatter in their mind, really not necessarily speaking from their heart. And that is what Patanjali is telling us to do here. Vishoka or Jyotishmati, reflect, then your speech will also be light. Your speech will also be something that is not creating suffering. Vishoka. So speak from the heart, not from the chatter of the mind. In the Hrit Pundarika, the heart lotus, lies in all of us the Paramatma, the divine. The Paramatma lies in all of our heart. That Paramatma focus on, because that divine is free of suffering. Vishoka. That Paramatma is full of light. It doesn't matter what name you are giving that Paramatma. He says, relate that with faith. Tadava mamava sada anusarana namanan mananat prasanna chittaha. Tavava mamava. Whether it is your God or my God, it's not important. Tavava mamava. Sadhana sarana. Namanan manana prasanna chitta. Namana. Pray. Salute. Manana through meditation. Prasanna chitta with a pleasant mind. We have seen this word prasanna chitta in an earlier sutra. Chitta prasadanam. Maitri Karuna Sutra says chitta prasadanam. Similar word. Prasanna chitta. A mind that is sweet. A mind that is pleasant. Which basically means with an open heart, with an open mind, meditate on that Ishvara that is inside your heart. Call it what you want. You can give it a name, you can give it no name, you can give it a name through your religious faith. No problem. It can be different from somebody else's religious faith. No problem. But what is most important is the attitude with which you are relating, which is from the heart. And always, if you see, when you relate with Ishvara from the heart, you will transcend boundaries, including boundaries of religion. Whereas if you relate with Ishvara through a mental structure, you will be bound by a box. You will be bound by a box. And all the yogis, if you see, all the people have understood the tradition, you will see that they are all transcending the boxes, they are not limiting themselves into a box. Because this concept of God is too big to fit into one religion. The moment you give a construct to God saying this is the only boundary in which God is to be defined, you are contradicting your own religion, because every religion defines God as infinite. Infinite means that which has no boundary. Because the moment you put a boundary, it is finite. You can measure within a boundary. So you will contradict your own religion, because every religion defines the divine as that which is infinite. So what is important is the love for your God, for one's own God, the faith for one's own God, and the deep connection with one's own God, all of which come from the heart. Faith is coming from the heart, not from the mind. Love is coming from the heart, not from the mind. When you understand love, you don't love somebody because they are fitting all these parameters. You don't have a checklist. The mind doesn't have a checklist. Okay, check, check, check. You love somebody because you feel that love or feel that connection. It is not based on number of ticks you are getting. The same with God. You are not going to checklist the God saying, oh yes, God, you are satisfying this condition, this condition, this condition. You cannot work like that. You have to work with a feeling of emotion, affection, faith, etc., connection. All these are placed deep in our heart. That's why whether it is the Purusha, whether it is the Ishvara, or whether it is even happy memories and happy feelings, all those are here. They are in the warm place. And that is why Acharya Krishnamacharya says in this kind of topic, we can do meditation or visualizing some light in the heart, some form of light in the heart, some image of some deity in the heart, even just simple breathing in the heart. Breathing, visualizing the breath in the heart. All of this will slowly bring you to connect with your heart, which is a warm place, which is free from suffering, which is free from heaviness or darkness. It is full of lightness, because that is where this is. As long as you are choosing to link with that side which is light. Because it is very easy to get consumed by darkness. That's why when you look at the Vaishnava tradition, there are many deities of Narayana, there are many forms of Narayana even in the form of light. example, one of the Divya Kshetras in Kanchipuram, which is associated with our ancestor Vedanta Deshika, its birthplace Vedanta Deshika's Sthalam. There is a Narayana temple, and there the Narayana is called Olivilakku Perumal in Tamil, or Divya Prakasha Swami. Divya Prakasha means the one who revealed himself in the form of a light. This Ishvara is nothing but light. Same with Olivilakku, which means like a lamp which has light in the form of light. So Ishvara does not have to be in a particular form. It can just be in the form of a lightness. And that is what we have to focus on, that we should not get stuck by forms of the divine. We must function, we must get attached to what the divine represents, which is lightness, not heaviness. I don't think Ishvara of any country, any religion wants us to be heavy. Ishvara wants to elevate us. So that is what we have to focus on, and that is the basic meaning behind the sutra. Vishokava Jyotishmati. 3 ways of understanding this. One, we all have both positive vasanas and vasanas that are heavy, vasanas that are light and vasanas that are heavy. At one moment, one interpretation of this could be that we are asked to focus on the positive light vasanas rather than the heavy ones. The other interpretation could be that we are asked to focus on the light in the form of Purusha in our hearts. And the third interpretation could be that we are asked to focus on Ishvara, which is in our hearts, not necessarily in a building. Please remember, that is the beauty of the Vedic tradition. It says, okay, there are temples, but more important than that is the Ishvara in your own heart. Because even if you go to that temple, you have to go with the Ishvara in the heart. And this you can do in your own house, you can do it wherever you are, because wherever you go, Ishvara is coming with you, because Ishvara is in your own heart. So this is what they are saying, focus on that light in your heart. So this is the sutra. Vishokava Jyotishmati.